This weekend is that special weekend of the year where many people are going to be late for church and other Sunday plans because they forgot to change their clocks. Tonight we're going in depth on daylight saving time and if the practice of springing forward itself is running out of time here in Oklahoma. There's a bill making its way through the state capitol that will lock the clock in Oklahoma once and for all. The times are changing in more ways than one, but a bill at the state capitol would officially do away with Oklahomans having to change their clocks once and for all.
This bill will not change when the sun rises or falls. It will change what time the clock says.
House Bill 1233 by more Republican State Representative Kevin West would lock Oklahoma's clocks into permanent standard time once it becomes law.
This would be early sunrise and a later sunset.
Last year, lawmakers passed and Governor Kevin Stitt signed Senate Bill 1200 that, depending on the federal government giving states the right to opt out of standard time and keep daylight time, would have worked. However, because the opt-out would depend on Congress, our lives haven't changed at all. West says Oklahomans deserve a lock the clock law that actually locks the clock.
This past November, even with that in place, we still fell back, and this coming weekend we will be springing forward because federal law does not allow you to opt out of standard time. It allows you to opt out of daylight saving time.
But the debate isn't that simple. There is bipartisan support for locking the clock, but the opposition comes from people in both parties who want more sunlight at night versus more sunlight in the morning. A debate that played out in a House committee that shows why the issue is so difficult to get across the finish line and into law.
It will get darker sooner. We are currently on standard time right now, and on Sunday we're going to spring forward.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I hate springing forward, but I like light later, so sorry.
Fair enough.
But many people are in agreement that the practice of daylight saving should sunset, and bipartisan support last year for what is seen as a failed attempt to lock the clock could mean this year is the year the Oklahoma standard takes on a second meaning: standard time. Last year, state lawmakers passed Senate Bill 1200, which would depend on the actions of the federal government before we saw any change. Right now, under Oklahoma law, should a federal law ever authorize states to choose whether they observe daylight savings time year-round or not, well, Oklahoma should then adopt a year-round standard of time. Some Oklahomans were under the impression we had already locked the clock and were surprised to see nothing in our lives change after we passed this law. Back in 2022 was the closest Congress ever came to locking the clock. 3 years ago, the U.S. Senate passed the Sunshine Protection Act with bipartisan support. Some states passed their own legislation, but in many cases, it relied on Congress to act before their laws kicked in on the state level. When then Florida U.S. Senator Marco Rubio, now Secretary of State, said at the time it was something easy Congress could do together.
This is not the most important issue before the Republic, but I do think people wonder, why do we keep doing this flipping back and forth on the time?
When it got to the U.S. House of Representatives, there was a lot of excitement, but it stalled because, get this, some say they could not agree on if they wanted permanent daylight time or permanent standard time, and the bill died. Then President Joe Biden indicated he actually had an interest in locking the clock, but the bill never reached his desk. President Donald Trump was asked if he was open to eliminating time change once and for all. He promised he would do so on the campaign trail. White House reporters asked him if he was still looking into it, and here's what he said.
This should be the easiest one of all, but it's a 50-50 issue. And if something's a 50-50 issue, it's hard to get excited about it. I assume people would like to have more light later, but some people want to have more light earlier because they don't want to take their kids to school in the dark. And it's a little bit one way, but it's very much a 50-50 issue. And it's something I can do, but a lot of people like it one way, a lot of people like it the other way. It's very even. And usually I find when that's the case, what else do we have to do?
Right now, 2 states do not observe daylight saving, and we would join them if the current proposal in the State House becomes law. Arizona and Hawaii do not observe daylight saving. Hawaii says it doesn't need to because of its constant daylight and tropical climate. Arizona opted out of it because of extreme summer heat during busy parts of the day if it were to observe it. Several U.S. territories also do not observe daylight saving time, including American Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands.